I've got a bunch of cans to open, and being a good cooking show, I'm going to show you everything I do, and you get to watch me open each can one by one. Nah, just kidding. Give me a minute here. Through the miracle of video, the cans are now open, and it's no great secret or any expensive stuff. It's 1 can of diced tomato, 1 can of tomato sauce, a small can of tomato paste, and 1 can of kidney beans. So you got the beef on there and it's sizzling away a little bit more because the fat's out. You just throw in the can of diced tomato. You throw in the can of tomato sauce. Now, normally with tomato paste, I open both ends and push it through, but I'm doing this at a friend's house and he has a can opener that takes the lid off in a different way. So I'll just open one end and scoop out with the knife the tomato paste. Now, you may wonder why I'm using 3 different kinds of tomatoes. Well, the tomato sauce is like the broth or the liquid that holds the stuff together. You want the diced tomatoes because that gives you chunks of tomatoes in your broth, so it's something to chew on and gives it some texture. And you want the tomato paste because that gives it a really strong, creamy tomato flavor. So that's why you got 3 different kinds of tomatoes in it. So you throw those in and you just turn it around with your spoons just to get the stuff mixed through it. You notice I haven't put the kidney beans in. Because kidney beans are pre-cooked, if you cook them the whole time in the meat net, they'll overcook and go to paste. So I just turned that stuff in there. Now, we've got the texture, we've got the tomato in there, the looks, the bright red and that whole thing. Now's the time to add the flavor. As I said, what we're going to do now is add the flavor. Now there's a thing about chili powder you need to know. Every chili powder is so different, I can't tell you how much to put in. So you're going to start off by putting in 2 tablespoons of your chili powder. Because that, you can always add more later. But so you got 2 tablespoons rather, and you put that in and give it a bit of a stir. Because chili powder tends to clump up, so you want to stir it around as fast as you can. After you put the chili powder in, that's what makes it taste like chili. But my secret for chili con carne is one that I don't know that most people use is I add either oxxo cubes or beef bouillon, or you can buy beef stow. So what I got here is some liquid beef bouillon. And to figure out how much to put in, you read the instructions to find out how much to make a cup. This one calls for 2 teaspoons to make a cup. You want to put enough in as if you were making 2 cups of broth. So I want 4 teaspoons in there. And this is the bottle. So we'll just spray myself with some bouillon, and we'll add 1, 2, 3, 4 teaspoons. You can actually use a measuring teaspoon, but it's not that critical. Don't worry about it. So you got the beefy flavor, you got the chili, you got the tomato texture. The next thing you want to add is about a teaspoon of basil. That just gives it a little bouquet, a little scent. It's a little different than just the chili powder, so it's important. So a teaspoon of basil. The next thing that I like is Worcester sauce, or Worcestershire sauce, or pronounce it how you want. I pronounce it Worcester, but what do I know? You pronounce it the way you like to pronounce it. Worcestershire sauce has a really strong flavor, so use it sparingly. You only want about a teaspoon or a teaspoon and a half of Worcestershire sauce. And so you're just going to pour that in there. Okay, now that you've put all that stuff in there, leave it on the medium thing until it gets to a good boil and there's lots of bubbles coming out. This has got lots of bubbles coming out now. Okay, as you see, it's nice and bubbling, lots of steam coming off. When it gets like that, turn your heat down to 1 notch above minimum. And now that you got it turned down on the heat, it's very important you put a lid on it. If you ever want to make a sauce or something thicker, you leave the lid off because it boils water off, but this recipe starts off thick. So you want to put the lid on it and just leave your thing turned on to minimum, and now it's just going to sit there and simmer slowly for about 30 minutes. The key thing to do is to come back every 5 or 10 minutes, make sure it's not sticking on the bottom, and give it a stir. But for now, now's the time to go and do the other major ingredient, which is another internal application of a good red wine. While your chili's simmering along there, I just thought I'd mention to you that chili isn't chili without a slice of bread with it. And you can just buy a good French loaf or a good Italian loaf. We went a little different and bought some garlic bread because Lord knows chili doesn't have enough flavor on its own. So we thought we'd get something that would stand up to it. We went the lazy way and bought this pre-made bread in a foil loaf because you could just throw it in the oven for 10 or 15 minutes and it's done. Now, one of the things while we're waiting for it to simmer is you don't want the liquid on the beans. It's got a ton of salt in it. There's already lots of salt in the other canned stuff. You notice I didn't add any salt. So you want to take the liquid off and just have the beans left, and you can do this while the beef is carrying on or while the chili is simmering. So just pour your beans into a colander or a sieve, and as you look at it, it's almost got a slime on it just from being in the can. What you want to do is get rid of that. That's the salty stuff. So just give it a little rinse off with some nice fresh cold water, and then let it sit in your sink and drain while you're waiting for the simmering to finish. And go have some more liberal application of some red wine, because Lord knows you can't get enough of that in your recipe. Okay, the chili's been simmering for about 30 minutes now. So you've taken the lid off, you're going to turn the heat up just a little bit, and you're going to throw the kidney beans into the chili. And like I say, you just want to get these hot because you want them to still have some texture after having been canned. Now's the time to serve your chili up, so go ahead and dump it in the bowl. And while I'm serving it up, I'm just going to recap what we did. We took a medium onion and we chopped it up. We took 3 cloves of garlic, smashed them and chopped them up. And then we sauteed them in a couple of tablespoons full of oil till they were soft. We threw in 1.5 pounds of lean ground beef. And then we browned that up rather, and then we threw in 1 can of tomato sauce, 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1 small can of tomato paste. Then we added our flavorings, which was about a teaspoon and a half of Worcestershire sauce, a couple of tablespoons of chili powder and kept adding it to taste, and 1 teaspoonful of basil. And enough beef broth type base to make up 2 cups. They would use to make up 2 cups. We stirred that and let it simmer for 30 minutes, and we added 1 can of drained and cleaned kidney beans into it and let it sit for another 10 minutes, and then you have this wonderful meal that you see before you. And it's recording. Okay. So, my producer and cameraman Bill and myself are all ready to enjoy the meal. Bon appetit. Sounds good.